Hey everybody, Dom here. We got Vinny and Tom Haudricourt coming up in just a moment. Tom, of course, the beat writer of the Milwaukee Brewers for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. And it's an amazing Interrogation Tuesday with some amazing stories. Coming in just a second, stick tight. We got Locked On Brewers coming up next, your first listen of the day.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey again, everybody. I'm Dominic Cotroneo. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's Interrogation Tuesday. Tom Haudricourt is standing by, getting ready to jump in with Vinny Rottino. You can follow us on Twitter at Dom_Cotroneo and at Vinny Rottino. That's two T's in Rottino as well. You can also follow Tom Haudricourt on his Twitter account at Haudricourt online as well. You can always remember to subscribe, like, rate, follow our podcast wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Music, Spotify. It's available all over the place. And also, we're on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube page as well. Before we jump into that, we got to thank our friends at Built Bar as well. The holiday season, you got to grab the best protein bar in the game. It's the best of both worlds. You got low fat, low calories, low sugar, low net carbs, and you got high protein, best of both worlds, delicious and healthy, with so many flavors: raspberry, mint brownie, cherry, double chocolate, cookies and cream, peanut butter brownie. Built Bar is going to give you that extra fuel you need here in the home stretch of the holiday season. And tell you what, you can tell Santa to throw one into your stocking, and you can get an amazing promo thanks to our friends at Built Bar. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, that's LOCKED15 at Built.com, and you're going to get 15% off your order. They've got all those flavors. There's so much passion behind everyone's favorite flavors, of course, too. They've got the amazing Built Bar Puffs as well. You can have like a marshmallowy treat in your hot cocoa. You can even dip a Built Bar into hot cocoa. I mean, that doesn't get you in the season spirit. I don't know what will. So again, go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. And with that out of the way, let's jump into Tom Haudricourt.
Tom, we were just talking off camera. I would love to hear your story because you are the one that's asking all the questions all the time to players, right? And I remember that. I remember Tom's questions sitting there in the clubhouse. But I want to ask you a question. Tell us a little bit about your background. Are you not the longest tenured beat writer in baseball right now? And just a little bit on your background.
Yeah, I'm probably definitely in the top 5%. I've got 35 years in, more or less, covering the Brewers. I have 46 years in the newspaper business because I worked for 8 years in Virginia before, which is where I am now. I'm back home in Virginia visiting family. I'm from Virginia. I'm the accidental journalist. The fact that I've only ever been a newspaper reporter and mostly a baseball writer is just serendipity or accident or whatever you want to call it. It wasn't planned. I tell people all the time I didn't go to journalism school, and they say, yeah, we can tell. But I thought I was going out of high school in Richmond, Virginia in 1972. That's how old I am, guys. I graduated from high school in 72. I thought I was going to the Naval Academy. My father was a big Navy guy. He helped get me into congressional appointments. You have to have your local congressman has to submit his backing, and I thought I was all set. And back then, I know it's hard to look at me now, but when I was young, I was actually in good shape, and I
believe it.
And I went up for my physical, and I got a letter a few days later saying my application to the Naval Academy had been denied because they had found me to be colorblind on a green-gray spectrum.
Okay.
News to me. That was news. I was flabbergasted. And I called them. I said, are you guys sure about this color blindness on gray-green spectrum? They said, oh, yeah, we're very confident in our testing. And I said, well, just how important is that? And they said, well, our ships are gray and the ocean is green, and we want you on the ship, not in the ocean. Consider it a pretty important spectrum. So now, anybody who knows me won't find this hard to believe, but I had no plan B. I was all in on the Naval Academy. And so then my guidance counselor in high school pulled some strings after applications had been closed and got me into the University of Virginia. So I said, now I got to decide, what am I going to do at the University of Virginia? Hey, let's do pre-med. Maybe I can be a doctor. and so I stuck it out to my junior year and got a D in organic chemistry. And I said, I'm out. My grades weren't going to be good enough to get in a good med school, maybe like the University of Guatemala or something like that. But not like a real school. And so, but I had started writing for my student newspaper, Vinny and Dom.
Okay.
And I liked doing it. I had no idea if I was any good. But I sent out applications, got hired at this little paper in Manassas, Virginia. I didn't really like it there. And so I spent 8 months sending articles to my hometown paper in Richmond. And the sports editor called me down there after 8 months, showed me a manila folder with rubber bands around it full of newspapers. And he goes, Mr. Haudricourt, do you know what this is? And I said, no, I don't. He goes, this is every story you sent me for the last 8 months trying to get a job on my newspaper. I want to hire you so you'll stop sending me this crap.
That is a committed young man.
He hired me, and then 3 years in, Vinny, they put me on the beat of the Richmond Braves, Atlanta's.
Oh, wow.
The Richmond Braves. I've been covering first high school sports and then college sports, but I was young and single at the time, and no married guy really wanted to do the beat because in the summer, when the kids are off at school and stuff. And so, but I loved it. I just loved it. And thank God I covered AAA baseball for 5 years because I learned the game itself of baseball. Back in the minor leagues, Vinny, it's all about the everyday, the grunt work, just learning the game. And so I learned the game, but I also learned that, hey, if you want to be a baseball writer, you want to be a Major League Baseball writer, right? So I sent applications out in 1985. I got hired by the old Milwaukee Sentinel back when there was two newspapers, the Sentinel and the Journal, and then covered them by myself with the Sentinel until the two papers merged in 95. Drew Olson and I shared the beat for several years.
Right. Yeah.
Still very good friends. And so, but I can tell you guys, if you go back and look at Brewers history in 80s and 90s, it wasn't a lot of prettiness.
Yeah.
The 80s had some fantastic stuff because of Team Streak in 87. And some, there were some interesting things that went on. The 90s were very bleak, other than 92, Phil Garner's first year when they won like 91 games. And then Miller Park came, obviously now American Family Field with Miller Park came, and that changed everything. Just a whole new ball game, allowed them to start putting some competitive teams together. But these, take it from somebody who's covered them for 35 years. We're in the golden age of Brewers baseball right now.
Amen to that.
Yep.
Playoffs. I started covering them in 85, Vinny. And one of the first things I said after watching about a week of the Brewers baseball that year, I turned to one of the veteran guys and said, this team was in the World Series 3 years ago, right? And they said, yeah. I said, what happened to them? They were not very good. Anybody that knows Brewers history knows a lot of guys got hurt, a lot of guys got old, some guys moved on. Yount, Molitor, and Gantner sort of survived, but not many other people did. And then they just stumbled through the baseball wilderness for a while. And but the last 4 years, and really since 08, so I started covering them guys in 85, and I didn't see champagne sprayed in the Brewers clubhouse until 08. So it was
amazing.
A long wait for me, a long wait for them.
No kidding. That's incredible. And you mentioned 82, and you wrote a book on 82.
I did.
And that team, I've learned, obviously, being a transplant here in Milwaukee as well, on how important that team was as you went through the research of that book. And you still can't go 10 feet at American Family Field without somebody mentioning something about that 1982 team. Yeah. Granted, it predated your coverage, but going through that research process, I know you wrote it almost a dozen years ago, a little more than a dozen years ago, but going through that process as we're about to enter the 40th anniversary of that team this coming year.
Right.
Looking back, 1982, what sticks out as you research that book and the stories that you heard from those teams?
That was a very fun book to write, guys, because the title of the book was Where Have You Gone, 82 Brewers, and we did it on the 25th anniversary of the 82 team. And the premise of the book was a chapter on each player. So I wrote just an entire chapter on each player, told his story, with how he got to be with the Brewers, what he did that year in '82 for him. And so that introduced me to a lot of guys I had never met. I had never met Doc Medich. I had never met Mark Brohard. I had never met Pete Ladd. You know, a lot of the stars were still there in '85, but not a lot of the auxiliary players. And so it was so fun. Let me tell you a funny story about that. So I was getting close to the deadline for the manuscript, and I had only not interviewed one guy, Pete Vuckovich. Have either of you guys ever met Vukie?
I've never met Yogi, no.
Yeah, so I scouted for 4 years, Tom, and every time that I got a chance to sit in the stands next to Vuk, because he's a longtime scout, he's one of the best in the business, you sit next to him because he's got stories. So I'm sure there's one coming right here.
Well, he could be obstinate when he wanted to be.
Oh yeah.
And
I can see that.
And media are not his favorite people. He doesn't wake up in the morning going, I hope I booked the reporters to talk to you today. That's really the agenda. So like you said, Vinny, though, he was a scout and he was scouting the NL Central back then. And so I saw him all the time. I saw him in St. Louis. I saw him in Cincinnati. I saw him in Pittsburgh. And every time I saw him, I said, Vukie, I need to interview you for the book. No. No, the end of discussion. And this went on for week after week after week. So finally we're to like do or die. He's the last guy. And I could write the chapter without talking to him, but it wouldn't be as good. And I had talked to everybody else. So finally we're in St. Louis. He's there scouting. I think he was scouting for the Pirates and but doing the NL Central. And so I took one last pass on him, and Ted Simmons was in the press box that day, and I had talked to him long ago. And I tried to get Teddy to help me answer not no from Teddy, no from Vukie to Teddy to me. So Vukie blew me off one last time, and so now I know I figuratively had the black cloud over my head as I went into the media dining room. And Bob Uecker sees me, and I guess I had this horrible look on my face. He goes, Tom, what's wrong? I said, you don't want to hear it. He goes, no, really, what's wrong? I said, Vukie, and I pointed to him because he was overeating at one of the other tables. I said, Vukie, I've been asking him for weeks to interview for this book, and he won't do it. He keeps blowing me off. And today's like the last day I can talk to him, and the manuscript's in, and he said, no. He goes, really? He told you no? I said, he's told me no 100 times. Uecker gets up out of his chair, walks over, leans over into Vukie's ear and whispers something. Comes back over, sits down. Vukie follows behind him, walks up to me, says, okay, what do you want to know? So I almost kissed Uecker on the lips. I know I gave him a big hug. But then I thought Vukie would be like the kid who has to write on the chalkboard 100 times, I will talk to Tom Haudricourt, I will, but no, he was fantastic. And he assumed personal responsibility for losing the World Series.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had the ball in game 7. I let the team down. Well, it came out later. He was pitching with a torn rotator.
Yeah.
And he went out there and just literally bled for the team. But that's the way he was. And it turned out to be the best chapter in the book.
Oh, I bet.
Poured his guts out to me. But and then we've laughed about it many times since. And, when he was there the day Ted Simmons had a press conference at the winter meetings after he got in one of the Veterans Committee Hall of Fame votes a few years ago. And I went up to him and I said, hey, Vuk, I know you don't like talking to me, but will you talk to me about Teddy? Well, just because it's Teddy, I'll talk to you. So, it's the act, it's the Vukie act. But that's some of the fun stuff about being a longtime reporter, guys, is just these interactions with people, funny stuff. I've written a few other books, but I really liked that book because it meant a lot to me to learn about these guys that had come and gone before I even got to Milwaukee.
Hey guys, jumping in real quick to tell you about BetOnline as they have you covered all season with more props, more odds, and more lines than ever before as football season continues to march to the playoffs. Weird Monday night doubleheader last night. Could have bet with BetOnline. It's their number one spot number one spot for sports action all this season. And you can head to their new updated desktop or mobile site, and you can sign up today and use Locked On when you sign up with the promo code Locked On, and you're going to get 50% of a welcome bonus on your first deposit. So again, you sign up, you make your first deposit, you're going to get 50% back when you use the promo code Locked On, all one word. You've got basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and the UFC, and even casino games available right there on BetOnline. So take advantage of all of the amazing offers. The fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, BetOnline, where the game starts.
Yeah, and that's what, at the end of the day, you got to have a million stories just like that. And I do want to talk about, eventually we want to talk about where the game and where the Brewers are right now, but I do want to ask you one quick question. So that's Vuckovich, and he has to be right up there for the most interesting players that you've ever covered. I mean, because you get to know these guys. I remember that. I mean, I remember interacting with you in the clubhouse. I mean, you do a great job of building rapport with players, and then they give you dope, dope meaning information and talk to you, right? That's the scouting term for info. But at the end of the day, who's your, give it to me. Who is the most interesting player that you've ever covered? I mean, I know that you can take that question a number of different ways and kind of define interesting a number of different ways, but who is it?
I will tell you, Vinny and Dom, I've been fortunate to get to cover a lot of fantastic people. It does, and I'll start at the top. It doesn't get much better than Robin Yount, Jim Gantner, Paul Hunter, both as players and people. But then a lot of average players were fantastic people too. And Kevin Seitzer, he was so nice. And Jeff Cirillo was so nice. Dan Plesac was so nice. And all of these guys were fun, real fun to talk to. And we go on and on and on. But let me tell you a little dark one. Do you guys ever hear of Jeff Juden?
No.
Who? No, I haven't.
Juden, the pitcher Jeff Juden, 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 Jeff Juden.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, he pitched for the Brewers. He pitched. He was one of those guys that bounced around because he just turned out to be not a great character guy, not a good clubhouse guy, and so. And so we had him like in the early 90s briefly. He's playing for Phil Garner. And the Brewers had back in the old days of County Stadium, we got a lot of rainouts, man. It just seemed to rain a lot there. And so we got to August, and we'll have you guys, Dom, maybe you could do some research what year Juden pitched for the Brewers was.
I got it up right now.
Thanks. And so the Brewers had so many rainouts that they played 3 consecutive doubleheaders at County Stadium in August. And Vinny, they didn't do the 7-inning stuff. It was 9 and 9 and 9. And so June, and you guys all love this. You guys know Paul Wagner, right? The local guy, Paul Wagner.
Yeah.
So Juden had the first game of the first of 3 consecutive doubleheaders, and Wags had the nightcap, right? And so Juden starts woofing at the home plate umpire in the first inning of game 1 about the strike zone. And Garner comes out to the mound and says, "Stop yelling at the umpire. You cannot get ejected from this game. We need 6 or 7 innings out of you today, Jeff. And so just keep your mouth shut and pitch, and let's go here." So Guard goes back in the dugout, and Juden starts woofing at the umpire and gets ejected in like the first inning or second inning. And so now they have to cover the whole rest of the game with a bullpen. And then Wags has to eat one for the team in the second inning, gives up like 11 runs in the first 2 or 3 innings because they can't take him out. So Garner's so mad at Juden, and he ends up suspending him for like a week or something. But in between, we usually got to talk to the starting pitcher between doubleheader games. We usually got to talk to the starting pitcher for 1, but nobody else, because everybody else is getting ready to play the second game, right? So we didn't think June would talk to us between games after being ejected. But sure enough, we get word from media relations, "Come on down to the clubhouse door down in the old tunnel of County Stadium. June's going to talk to you guys." And I said, "I can't wait for this." So we get down there, and I said, "Tell us what happened." I asked the first question. I said, "Jeff, tell us what happened there in the first inning." And all of a sudden he becomes Alex Trebek, and you have to phrase it in the form of a question. He goes, "That's not a question. I'm not responding to that." And I said, "Okay, I'll play your game. I'll make it into a question. What happened in the first inning?" He goes, "Next question." I said, well, can you tell us? You can't tell us. Next question. He gives me like 3 straight next question. So I run the white flag up and say, I'm done. And so then another reporter tried, and he said, I'm done talking about this. Well, he hadn't said anything except next question. And he walks out, he spins around and walks back out to the media relations guy, who swore to us later that he turned to him and said, how did I do?
Sounds like a character. Oh my goodness.
1998, by the way.
That's what year?
1998.
98. Oh, later than I thought. I thought it was early 90s. The years they've flown by me. How many appearances did he have for the Brewers that year?
He made 24 appearances. All of them were starts. He went 7-11 with a 5.53 ERA.
Yeah.
That's not that bad for today's day and age. I mean, that'll make you about
Late
10 million
90s,
a year,
yeah.
He had an electric guitar that he actually plugged in and would he asked if he could play it in the clubhouse, and he would play it very loud. And so Garner said, I'll only let you play it on the days you start. Because I know that you think it relaxes you if you go out there, but otherwise, Jeff, no, that's just the days you start. So he was starting on a Sunday afternoon, and a whole 20 guys were at chapel, and they come back from chapel and walk into the clubhouse, and Gene's playing Highway to Hell on his electric guitar, a good post-chapel ditty.
Sounds like Dennis Sarfate, guy I played with.
I know,
very similar.
Oh,
That's
man,
phenomenal.
That's great.
So I want to turn back to this past year, though, Tom, as we talk about Vucki and talk about a Cy Young winner. Got to watch the next Cy Young winner this year, Corbin Burns. I mean, this team had a full list of superlatives that Corbin Burns' performance kind of overshadows. Josh Hader won reliever of the year again. Devin Williams was one of the top relievers of the year, aside from him breaking his hand at the end of the season, of course. But I think this 2021 team, and we'll see what happens in 22, obviously, do you feel like this 21 team is going to really be a team of legend that people are going to be talking about for a very long time, given what this roster had on it and the stories that came out of this season?
Right. Well, I want to preface my answer by saying how impressed I am with the way Vinny breaks things down.
Heck yeah, he's so good.
I mean, and Vinny knows.
Appreciate it.
Vinny knows from the way I talk to him in the press box that I don't blow smoke up the patootie people.
No, he does not. On the record, Tom, you're one of the funniest guys that no one knows is funny. But anyway, I digress.
But it's mostly, but a little dark humor at times.
Yes.
But I am so impressed, Vinny, with the way you break things down. You have a great political mind, and I'm just saying that to preface. I will challenge anyone to tell me this wasn't the best pitching staff ever in Brewers history. What you got on that, Vinny? You going to challenge me on that?
No, I'm not. In fact, I just talked to somebody. I said, look, would you rather have Burns, Woodruff, Peralta, Hauser, and Lauer, or would you rather have Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz, Hampton, and Avery? Just in a vacuum 1 year, who would you rather have? I'm not talking about the bulk of the career.
You're not saying
1
career
year against 1 year. Yeah. The way that they threw the ball this year, you would make a strong case for the Brewers staff this year.
Corbin, and I think a lot of the national guys, once he won Cy Young or was a finalist, they did some deep dives into him and saw what was going on. But outside of Milwaukee guys, no one understood the turnaround that Corbin Burns had from a couple of years until now. He statistically, then Vinny, you know how to break stats. You could make a case he was the worst pitcher in the game.
You could. Yeah, you could. I mean, give up a ton of home runs.
Statistically, and and that would have just wrecked so many people for not forever. The confidence. People challenge me all the time, Vinny, and you're a former pro player, a former major leaguer. People challenge me all the time when I tell them that no matter how good a player has been or not, when they're struggling, they lose confidence. And they say, well, don't tell me Robin Yount ever lost confidence. Or don't tell me, and I'm telling you, and I said, well, I'm telling you, there were times in their career where they lost confidence.
Yeah.
And because failure for an extended period of time makes you lose confidence. But then you find out how tough is this guy? How mentally tough is this guy? For Corbin to do what he did, and he got some great coaching from Chris Hook and some great help from the pitching lab and just some great pats on the back from teammates. And he had tremendous support, but he had to do a lot of it himself. And he remade himself mentally and physically. And he's a completely different pitcher. And, we laugh all the time that you can make a case that the Brewers had guys with the best pitches in baseball, that he had the best cutter, that Hader had the best fastball or slider, pick one of them. Devin Williams, the best changeup, Brandon Woodruff, one of the best bulldog mentalities of any.
Right.
I mean, he knows how to fight. And then Freddie, he's electric with when he has all his stuff going. And nobody tries harder and nobody wants to win more. So this was just a fantastic group. When you consider like Hauser, like number 4 and Lauer, number 5, look at their numbers.
I know. Numbers were really good.
Many teams. I covered a team, Vinny, in which the opening day pitcher was Rafael Roque, for God's sakes.
That's right.
What do you think the rest of that staff?
Ruben Cavedo. Yeah, I mean, even as good as
the rest of that staff?
Yeah, I know. And so that kind of goes to a follow-up here is, where do they go from here? I mean, it's the same staff here for the next couple of years, Tom. Yes. I mean, so this is a really good window to win a World Series for Milwaukee.
It is. And they don't have to be better. They just have to be they don't have to be better. And it'd be crazy to ask. Maybe some of the guys might. I still think Hauser's got to step up, and I'm saying he has to step up. He has more stuff. He
probably can too.
Yeah. And then Lauer, same thing. And Devin Williams just kind of has to stay healthy. And there's some other guys, Ashby, don't sleep on Aaron Ashby.
Yeah.
I've got a story coming in the Journal Sentinel sometime over the next few days on Ethan Small. And I personally like him a lot. I think he's going to be a really good starter for the Brewers, and he's so savvy. He's one of those lefties that just can mess you up.
Yeah.
And so they're pitching, and then they've got really good pitching depth down lower. They had a guy like an A-ball this year named Taylor Floyd who had a tremendous year. And so and then they've got some international signing guys that are just getting going,
Yep.
So this is all about the offense being better. If they can make the offense better, then with that pitching, they're going to be really hard to beat. And they've made that Hunter Renfroe move, and I thought that was a brilliant move because they had lost Avi Garcia, and so they sort of replaced right-handed power with right-handed power. So it's like it balanced out just perfect. And then I think Tyrone Taylor's ready to take some real playing time in center field when Lorenzo Cain needs some time off. And then it's all about, Christian Yelich bouncing back to some extent. I don't think he has to be 2018, 2019 Christian Yelich, but he'll be the first to tell you he can be way better than he was. And then the rest, I like Urias at third. I like Adames at short. You got to like Long at second. I'm not sure exactly how first base is going to break down. Rowdy Tellez is probably going to at least be part of a platoon. And then Navarro, I've never seen a guy improve defensively as much as he has since he came to Milwaukee. And then everybody says, well, the guy they just signed, Severino, he doesn't have a very good reputation defensively. I said, neither did Omar Narvaez. And now, he frames more than your local framing shop does down the road. I've been to auctions where nobody will bid on a painting, and the guy will say, well, heck, the frame's worth $25. Can somebody give me $25 bid here? Well, no one's better at framing than Omar Narvaez. Am I right?
You are right. And these are the kinds of jokes, although that wasn't your best, I'll give you credit. These are the kinds of jokes that Tom will come across in the press box that just gets you rolling. But, oh man,
that's so great.
Not my best material, but it's late here in Virginia. I've been drinking all the I had a lot of eggnog. I've had a lot of eggnog today.
Well, I've only got one quick little rapid fire session for you left. I'm sure Vinny's got at least one more question for you, but
Okay.
I wanted to follow you up with this. And he kind of teased it a little bit earlier, talk about who's your favorite guy to talk to, your favorite stories to talk about. Is there a team that, aside from this previous year, and you kind of might have hinted to it already, a team that maybe wasn't very successful that you just really are going to look back fondly on or really enjoyed covering throughout that entire season? That's my first of two quick, just kind of get to know you.
Well, I won't say that they weren't successful, but they didn't make the playoffs. That 92 team under Garner,
Yeah.
When Pat Listash was Rookie of the Year, and they ran like a National League team. Garner was a National League guy. They set the American League record for stolen bases. They did a lot of Brewer stuff that had never been done before. I saw them beat Toronto 22-2. I saw them steal like 9 bases off David Cone, who miraculously came up with a slide step before his next start. But that team won 91 games, but there was no wild card back then. But I covered the Blue Jays won the World Series that year, that 92 team, for the second straight year. But Molitor was on that team that year. He had left and gone to them, and he was World Series MVP. But Cito Gaston, we were talking to him, the Toronto manager, before one of the World Series games that year, and that would have been against Philadelphia, right? But anyway, he saw my credential that said Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. He goes, he couldn't pronounce my name, Haudricourt, but very few people can. I couldn't pronounce it correctly myself till the 6th grade.
You're preaching to the choir with my last name.
Oh man, I hear you. We're both like, we need to be on Wheel of Fortune. Can you buy a vowel? So but Cito saw it, and he goes, I guess you cover the Brewers, huh? And I said, yeah, I do cover the Brewers. He goes, boy, and the Brewers went like 9-4 against them that year, in the old AL East. And he goes, man, we hated playing the Brewers. They were so good. They chewed us up and spit us out so many times. He goes, I'm glad I think they're better than the team we're playing in the World Series now.
Oh, wow.
So that was just fascinating to hear from the manager who won the division, that they hated playing the Brewers because they had trouble beating them and didn't like the way they ran roughshod up. So that's a team, it's hard to say unsuccessful. I think they won 91 games, but they didn't get playoffs, And I think that team and then they got bad after that. So Bosio left in free agency and some other guys left in free agency. The payroll came down, and then it got a little bleak there in the 90s for a while. So, but it's and nothing was more fun than covering the beginning of the season with Team Street in '87 when they went 13-0. Diaz throws a no-hitter. Deere has the Easter Sunday home run. They went 13 straight games. Plesac was part of that team. He'll tell you how crazy good they were. You guys know, I wonder how many people realize that team won 13 in a row and shortly afterward lost 20 in a row.
I remember that.
They went from they went from 13-0 to 21-3, and then they were 21-15. They lost 12 in a row, and they're still the only team in Major League history to win at least 12 in a row and lose at least 12 in a row in the same season. Because think about it, you shouldn't be both that good and that bad in the same year, right? But that was so yeah, I've got to see some incredible stuff, and but it's the Brewers they've done a really good job these last few years, and there's no reason in the world why they shouldn't be thought of as a playoff team coming up this year. It looks to me, and you guys jump in with another team if you like, but it looks to me like it's going to be another Brewers versus Cardinals year, because the Cubs and Pirates are sort of regrouping. And the Reds look like they're peeling back a little bit too, although they still have a lot of good players.
I can agree with that.
Well, one thing that we get reminded of all the time, and Vinny as a catcher will tell you this, Tom, it's all about your pitching. If pitching, you can beat anybody. If you have bad pitching, you have hard trouble beating anyone. And it's every game's a fight when your pitching's no good. And so this team's got some really good pitch, and a lot of it's homegrown or at least home developed. Like Peralta was traded for when he was 18. So he wasn't homegrown, but he was home developed. And so they're doing such a good job internally now. You guys see the price of pitching in that little free agent frenzy before the lockdown. Man alive. It's free agent pitching's never cost more than it costs right now. And so for the Brewers to have guys under control, and they're not going to lose any of these guys after this coming season.
Yeah.
Right.
There's nobody down to their last year, so these guys are going to be around for a while. They may eventually get to the point where they trade some to get other parts, and they've never been in that position before where they felt comfortable trading away pitching. So I do think this is just a totally different kind of Brewers baseball than I've covered a lot of my career.
Yeah, it's been fun to follow for sure. And it's been fun to be part of like breaking it down and everything. And we really, really appreciate the time, Tom. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. I don't have any more, Dom. Do you have any more
I guess
for the legendary Tom?
My one
Haudricourt?
follow-up that I had was, who is the best opposing player you have ever seen play while you're recovering, whether it be, against the Brewers or in a World Series that you were lucky enough to cover? Who is the best player that you've seen that you've been telling people for a long time about?
Tony Gwynn. I saw anybody get Tony Gwynn out.
That's cool.
And I will say Ken Griffey Jr. Was so good, we sort of saw him in the back half of his career in Cincinnati, and he was so much better when he was in Seattle. And then I got to see a lot of, or if not all of, Cal Ripken's Iron Man Street, and I just couldn't believe how many games he played in a row and still was a productive player. And then making the move from short to third base too. So I've seen a lot of really good ones, and so those are just three that just jump out. Awful lot of good players. So if you guys want to hear a funny story about a legendary baseball player, I got one for you.
Who doesn't want to hear a funny story about a
Yogi
legendary
Berra
baseball player?
story? Want to hear a Yogi Berra story?
Of course.
All right. So when Robin Yount got inducted into the Hall of Fame, I think it was '99. I got to go to Cooperstown to cover it, right? Being the hometown writer. And the night before the induction ceremony out on the open field, they have a guest only cocktail party in the plaque room at Cooperstown with all the living Hall of Famers invited. And
beautiful.
And I don't know why Robin did, but he put me on his guest list.
Wow.
Cool.
And so I got to go. So I'm standing in there, guys, and Frank Robinson, Hank Aaron, Willie, just one icon, Johnny Benches. Here they come. And you're just, even by then in the late 90s, I'd been covering Major League Baseball for 15 years. And but you're still just like, your jaw is just open watching these guys. And then who should walk in, after a certain period of time? Yogi Berra. And first of all, I was stunned at how little this guy was for. This guy was a major league catcher. He looked so small. And I get that, a lot of guys, when they get old, bend over. But anyway, and I don't even know how old he was back then, but he was, pretty old. And so I happened to be standing next to two New York writers, Jack O'Connell and Bill Madden, who I knew Yogi a long time. And I said, guys, you know Yogi really well, right? And they said, of course. And I said, I really want to meet him. I want to be able to tell people I met Yogi Berra. I said, is there any way you would introduce me to him? And they said, stay here with us. He'll work his way over here eventually. And be prepared for him to say something funny. And I said, what do you mean? That's not an act. These lines aren't fed to him. They go, no, he can't help himself. So sure enough, he works his way over. They introduce me to him. I get to shake his hand. I am just in total awe that I'm talking to Yogi Berra. And he lived in Montclair, New Jersey, which was like a 5-hour drive through upstate New York to Cooperstown. And every year, even at that age, he still drove every year.
Wow.
So Jack O'Connell says to him, Yogi, you drive up here again from Montclair this year? He goes, yeah, I drove up there. And he goes, well, how'd that drive go? He goes, well, we got lost, but while we were lost, we made good time. He doesn't even crack a smile.
Oh my goodness.
He delivers that totally deadpan, like a great comedian would, and then turns and walks away. I'm wetting my pants laughing. And I turned to those guys and I said, that was a setup, right? You guys pull this shtick on a writer every year where you ask him about his drive and then he tells you I was lost. But they go, no, Tom, we have never heard him say that.
Amazing.
So I got to hear live and in color a Yogiism.
That's cool. Tom, that's got to be a great memory for you, especially covering the game for as long as you have, to hear a Yogi Berra-ism, right? That's a great story. Yeah.
The rest of the world was his straight men, you know, and you didn't even, I didn't know that asking him if he had drove up was feeding him a line that would lead to a joke. So, but, and my point there is the privilege that you get doing this job, to meet people that you'll never see again. Yeah. I got to know Hank Aaron very well when I covered Braves at the start of my career. He was their farm director, Vinny, and he would sit in the press box with me during games in Richmond and ask me about players on the team.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's cool.
That's amazing.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Tom, we can't thank you enough for spending some time with us on this Interrogation Tuesday. I know the lockout is obviously interesting for all of us, but we're really looking forward to finding more of your stories. We got that Ethan Small plug that we got in there as well. But again, folks can subscribe to the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel to find all of your work. I have it right here on my whiteboard, support local journalism. So we wish you all the best this offseason into 2022. We hope you have a very happy holiday season.
Same to you guys. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and to all of your listeners and viewers as well. So,
thanks, Tom. Thanks for joining us.
I really hope you guys enjoyed these stories as much as we did. Vinny and I, as you could tell, were smiling the whole time, enjoying these stories from a baseball lifer from Tom. And again, support local journalism. You heard us say it there at the end, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. They do incredible work covering all of our teams here in Milwaukee. Make sure to try to keep an eye out for all of the stories that he's got coming out here in the lockout and what's coming ahead. Quick housekeeping note for our schedule here in the holiday couple of weeks. No episode coming tomorrow, the Wednesday, that is. So our next episode will be Thursday. It'll be a Throwback Thursday episode as we continue count backwards. It'll be the number 18 and number 17 games of the 2021 season. And next week we'll also have only 3 episodes as well. Look, Friday's Christmas Eve. Next Friday's New Year's Eve. Take some time, hang out, and we'll be back with you with a more full schedule coming up in the new year. So we really appreciate you guys making us your first listen of the day. Make sure to make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets. It's hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis from Lee Sterling. It's free and it's available on all platforms. That's Locked On Bets. So for Vinny Rottino and for Tom Haudricourt, I'm Dominic Cotroneo. Don't forget to rate, like, subscribe, share, subscribe on YouTube. Do it all. Help us out. We really do appreciate it this holiday season as we continue to move forward. This was a lot of fun to listen to and to record, really, quite frankly. So thanks again for making us your first listen, and we'll see you guys on Thursday for Throwback Thursday.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.